Well, good morning. We're continuing our series on the Ten Commandments. We've come to the second commandment. It says this: "You shall not make for yourself a carved image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to the thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments." The first command is saying that God alone is to be worshipped. So what's the second command all about? Well, it's saying how he is to be worshipped. In this command, I'm sure as I read it, you were thinking, well, as maybe you thought last week, I don't own any idols, I've never made an idol, and I wouldn't dream of bowing down to an idol. And if you want to see how good I am, I don't like seeing pictures of Jesus in books. I try to avoid going into cathedrals and temples with stained glass windows and statues of Jesus. Maybe that's how you thought. So how do we apply that today? How do we see this command as a help today? Well, this command is really about how amazing God truly is, how special he is, how indescribably incredible he is. It would do him a disservice if we tried to capture what he is like and who he is with our own imaginations and with our own hands. We cannot fathom what God is like. We cannot use things from this world to try and recreate what God is like. He blows our minds. He's incomparable. And as soon as we use an image, we have reduced and reshaped God into our own image. We have put him in a box. We have limited him. So what about those images in the Bible that God uses to describe himself? A rock, a consuming fire, a shepherd, a strong tower, a hen gathering its chicks beneath its wing. Yes, God does use images, but that doesn't give us the right to say things like, I think God is like this, or I think he's like that. We should never hear such a sentence. We should also not use these images or images of Jesus in order to try and help us worship him. An image like that doesn't bring us any nearer to God. A statue doesn't bring us nearer to God. We know what this command forbids then, but how ought we to live in the light of this? Two things in particular I want to pick up on. We don't need to create images of God because he's already created them. In Genesis 1 and verse 27, it says this: "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them." We as human beings are little statues meant to show what God is like. We are created in his image and after his likeness. And so when we mistreat other people, when we are violent or racist or bullies, or we are prejudiced or we abuse, anything that devalues another human being is a violation of the divine image. We tend to think of the second command being broken when we are looking for God's image where it doesn't exist, as in idolatry. But in this case, we are ignoring God's image where it does exist. When we sin against our brothers and sisters, we are God's statues in the world. We are to show what he is like to others. So when we mistreat others, we are disobeying. So we need to heed the call to love our neighbours as ourselves. Secondly, how else can we live out this command? Where do we look to see God? Other religions have something tangible, something visible, a statue, like I said before, or a picture, or a landmark to visit. How can I possibly know this God if I can't see him, if I can only read about him? Well, when the law was given at Mount Sinai, the Israelites didn't see God. There was no image of him. They only heard a voice So the picture of God was incomplete. And God commanded them here not to make an image of him. But there's a promise in this second commandment. There's a promise that God would show himself. He didn't want his people trying to make an image of him because he knew that he was going to show himself to his people later on in the person of Christ. We see God fully in Jesus himself. Do you remember in John's Gospel when the disciples asked Jesus to show them the Father? Do you remember what Jesus said? "Have I been with you so long, and you still do not know me? Whoever has seen me has seen the Father." Or as it says in Colossians 1, it says of Jesus, "He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation." And it goes on to say, "In Christ, all the fullness of the deity lives in bodily form." You see, when Jesus came down, he fulfilled the second commandment, which, like the other commandments, it contains that promise. It's not just law, but it spoke of something greater to come. In Jesus, we see everything we could possibly want to see in God, because he is God himself in flesh. An old hymn says this: "Glory be to God on high, and peace on earth descend. God comes down, he bows the sky, and shows himself a friend. God, the invisible, appears. God, the blessed, the great I am, sojourns in this vale of tears, and Jesus is his name."